I was not going to talk about politics in this video. I was going to move on to a new subject, but someone had to go and make a video all about politics and stuff and make me have thoughts about things in politics. One thing that you said is that the extremists aren't really conservative, and I don't think that's quite your call, because a word is defined by how it's used. So over the course of its life, a word can change meaning based on how people use it, which means that words could have had a completely different meaning 200 years ago, and we use them for something completely different now. The other thing is the fact that, yes, it is a problem. People label themselves whatever they feel like. Can we just join the same political group and call ourselves the Contrarians? Because every single person should probably have their own political party, because everyone has different views on different things. It's kind of why I generally decided not to think of myself as conservative, is because to a pretty large extent I disagree with a lot of the things that they stand for. At least not verbally that they stand for, but that their actions show that they stand for. And also, yes, federalism sounds fantastic, because, the Constitution is pretty fantastic. Oh, you mentioned the government shutdown, and this is, I think, a pretty solid example of what I mean. My problem with it is the fact that I don't think it was the Conservatives' place to be able to make a deal at that point. That killing Obamacare there would be going outside of the system and kind of abusing the power given to you, because Obamacare had already been passed. It was on its way to becoming law, and any opposition you had to it you should have voiced earlier, and if you did and were overruled, the point of democracy is that the majority wins, so the minority has to be willing to agree to allow whatever the majority decided. It wasn't really anyone's place to destroy Obamacare at that point. And so if you can't follow the system, you're just cutthroat, you do whatever it takes to forward the opinions of your own political party. So now on the next topic, I was going to talk about my life story of stories. One of the reasons I think I'm a filmmaker now, and I talked about this at MDR at one of the sessions, is that I don't know specifically what I want to do with my life, but for sure a big portion of my life is going to end up being about stories in some form, whether it's writing, filmmaking, comics, telling stories to my children or something, or learning about history. All of it is stories in my mind. For as long as I can remember, stories have been a part of my life. Ever since I was very small, I would mix together my Legos and my Lincoln Logs and my Army soldiers and my Hot Wheels, and I'd just build a big city, and then I'd, battle it out, and it would be epic and awesome. Whether it was that, or playing in the mud, or running around in the backyard with sticks, I've always had stories, and I've always loved stories. Alex used to make up stories, fantasy stories of us being knights and, epic journeys and chosen ones and things for us to play while we were in the backyard. And then I started doing that for myself for a while, and then we adopted Peter, and I started doing that for him a bit. And I think I did this with you here, and I would make up stories, and, I'd be like, what character are you, what type of race are you, and how old are you, what's your occupation, and, or epic fantasy epics. I should really stop doing finger pistols, huh? And then I took written and illustrated, where you write a short story, and then you illustrate it, and you bind it and turn it into a little book, and, they had a reading thing, and it was super fun, and my stories were always way too long, because I can't do pacing, and I'm actually a pretty terrible writer. I learned to read, and then I read tons of books. I read everything I could get my hands on. I'd read for probably 2 or 3 hours minimum every day, and I just ate up books super fast, and it was great. I read tons of books. I've slowed down reading now, which is unfortunate. I went to Worldview Academy, which is leadership and critical thinking camp, and that kind of changed my view on stories, that stories have necessary parts, and that you can reflect truth or falsehood, and a well-told story is much deeper than anything else I'd ever thought, really. And that kind of helped me to get a deeper understanding of movies and books, and of how well stories are well told. And then years ago, Alex and I had this idea. We're probably laying in bed, just like, oh, I have an idea. Like, what if you had this world where you have, different races and they live in different sections, and it's a little bit like a fantasy world, and you have, people who live in massive trees, and you have people who live deep underwater, and then you have people who live in, giant swamps, and you have people who live underground, and the underground people can have, the steampunk faction, and an organic faction, and it's going to be super awesome. There are going to be giant trees, and there are going to be flying people and blimps and airships, and it's going to be epic and awesome. That's my $100 million movie series that I'll make ever when I'm a billionaire. And then, you know, I got into photography, which is kind of telling stories with a single frame, which is a very interesting and difficult thing to limit yourself with. It's very interesting, and it was, you know, I took several years of serious photography, although Alex was more serious into it. And then I transitioned, kind of stopped with that, went writing a bit more, and then I transitioned into filmmaking, obviously. Matthew knows this clearly. It seems to me that filmmaking combines all different types of storytelling. You've got photography to a certain extent, you know, telling stories within a frame. It's slightly easier because it's a video, but you've got each frame can tell a story in of itself, and that's actually an ideal way to do cinematography. And then you've got writing, and you can have stories told with your costumes and your props and your locations, and it's just combining tons of different art forms that tell stories into one. That was terrible. Stupid phone. Phone call. Stupid phone. So the camera died. Actually, no, it didn't die. It ran out of memory on the memory card. So, you know, what you gonna do? I don't even remember what I was saying. Crap. So this brings us to the present, where I have, you know, a million ideas. I have novel ideas, and I have feature film ideas, and I have short film ideas, and I have sketch ideas, and I have TV show ideas, and I have universe ideas, and I have tons of different things that I want to make. But right now, I'm just kind of learning to hone the skills that I will need if I'm ever going to make any of it happen. Got a new camera. Haven't used for any short films yet, but working on it. So working on it. But yeah, I think I'm getting better at vlogging though. I think I speak more clearly now. Maybe not. Maybe I just notice when I slur more. I'm kind of done now, but stories, they're great. But Megan, get on your vlog. I want ranting. Listening to you rant is way too much fun. Fortunately, I haven't disagreed with any of your rants yet. That will be an interesting day. A very interesting day. There will probably be death on that day. My death, specifically. Farewell. Stare into my eyes. Stare.